Si je pende de gojovede, tu desambe nobi nama.
Next we have Professor Bob Thurman. Professor, thanks for making the effort. Professor Thurman needs no introduction, but just as a formality, Professor Bob Thurman is an influential and prolific American Buddhist writer and academic who has authored and edited several books on Tibetan Buddhism. He is the J. Tsongkhapa Professor of Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Studies at Columbia University. Time chose him as one of the 25 most influential Americans in 1997. Professor.
Thank you, everyone, and I'm here just to really congratulate all of you for 164 days of raising the flag. You know, His Holiness now said recently in the press that the flag, Mao Zedong gave them permission to raise the Tibetan flag. Really, in 1954, when His Holiness and the Panchen Rinpoche were in Beijing, when His Holiness was 19. Mao Zedong, whether deceiving or at a moment of inspiration, he said, "Where's your flag? You should fly it over the guest house where you're staying in Beijing, and you should always fly the Tibetan flag, because you have your own local government, and even under China, Tibet is its own place." And this is very important. Now, you know, I have really nothing to say to you all that you don't already know. But perhaps it's encouraging for you to hear it from a non-Tibetan, because I'm disgusted with a lot of my fellow country persons, especially the scholars, who always act like, well, gee, I don't know, is Tibet part of China or not? Well, we have to do some more research. That is such a bunch of baloney. It is disgustingly dishonest. Everyone knows, who took the slightest effort to study, that Tibet has been an independent country with its own sovereignty and its own people and its own language and its own land and its own culture for thousands of years. Thousands of years. And the Chinese never lived in Tibet, which doesn't just mean the Tibet Autonomous Region, which means Tibet and all of the Amdo and Kham. You know, Uzang and Amdo and Kang, it means. That is, the entire Tibetan plateau above 13,000 feet is Tibet. And there's no BS about it. That's how it has always been. And before 1950, no Chinese people lived there, not even one. They would go for a little mission to make some money, but they didn't live there. And Tibetans, only Tibetans have the right blood chemistry, genetic adaptation to live at that altitude. Even the people in Bolivia, in South America, which is the other highest country in the world, they don't have the nitric oxide in their bloodstream that Tibetans do. So the Chinese attempt to colonize and occupy Tibet, that they are currently spending a lot of money on, will never succeed. It will fail, no matter what they try, no matter how many train lines they put. They can put 20 train lines, it won't matter. They cannot live in Tibet long term, or they get heart disease, they get sick. Only Tibetans can live in Tibet long term, and therefore Tibetans should be allowed to live in Tibet long term, otherwise the country will be empty and no one will know what to do there. So actually you should have hope in the long run. Now, I know that now is a very dark time, that currently in Tibet the news is beginning to trickle out. Thousands of people have been beaten, tortured, tens of thousands imprisoned, maybe 1,000 killed, maybe hundreds killed, nobody knows exactly. But it's a terrible crackdown, and the crackdown promises to get worse. Zhang Jingli, who is a very unpleasant person who really should be living a few centuries ago, is the cultural revolutionary who is seeking to destroy Tibetan culture, destroy the Tibetan people's knowledge and language and culture and religion and their affection for the Dalai Lama and for other great Tibetan Lamas. And he has written the documents that have been leaked to the press, but they don't show them professing and planning his very serious crackdown over the coming year. But what is interesting is he says in this internal Communist Party document that has been leaked, he says that the situation is very difficult for him because the Tibetan people don't give up, because the Tibetan people are too stubborn, because the Tibetan people are too spiritual, because the Tibetan people will not knuckle under to the Chinese communists. That is why we should be so proud of them. And that is why you are supporting them by continuing to be here all this time, 164 days, for which I highly, highly congratulate you and I admire you. And with folded hands, I really do offer you my great congratulations. And you should always raise this flag, and we should do it as more and as much as possible, though I understand people have to work and have to do what they have to do. But the point is that in spite of these terrible things that are happening, we should never, never give up hope. And we should never become desperate and feel that, well, we can't, nothing will happen and everything is lost and it's all gone and so it doesn't matter, and either give up completely and become depressed or else resort to violence. Neither extreme should we turn to. We must remain nonviolent. We must follow His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And the good thing about that is even if it takes decades and His Holiness the Dalai Lama decides to leave this body and take another one 20, 30 years from now, luckily he'll be back. He never quits. Life after life, he doesn't quit. That's a great thing about the reincarnation system. And the Chinese can come up with any number of fake Dalai Lamas they want, but Tibetan people will always know the difference. And nowadays the world respects Dalai Lama, the world loves Dalai Lama, and we will know the real one. We will not accept any fake ones. But just as we don't accept the fake Pension Lama sitting there stupidly in front of a tanka of Dorji Shugden on the, he does on the internet, you see him sitting, the fake one, which is no good, completely no good.
Nama